And this is Prime News Live from our studios in Douala, Cameroon's economic capital. My name is Fon Quinter. Begin today's edition of Prime News in the West region, where the lifeless body of a 43-year-old man has been discovered in a state of decomposition in a bush in Manja, a locality in Bangante in the West region. Eileen Sama took interest in the story and now reports.
The 43-year-old man who was murdered by men of the underworld in Manja was commonly called Uncle and was an internally displaced person from Bali, northwest region of Cameroon. Before his ordeal, who was a commercial bike rider, had been living in the Manja neighborhood for 6 months after fleeing the armed conflict in the northwest, struggling now for survival in Bagante, west region of Cameroon, before meeting his demise. The victim had gone missing for 4 days before he was found dead. After murdering him, the criminals made away with his motorbike, abandoning his corpse in this bush not far from College Thomas Nutong, which was only discovered 4 days after he went missing in a state of decomposition by a man returning from his farm that fateful day. His ID card was also found in the area, which made it easy for law enforcement officers who reported to the scene after being alerted by the inhabitants. His ID card was found around the area, which made it easy for identification by law enforcement officers in the area who reported to the scene after being alerted by the inhabitants. An investigation has been launched to track the perpetrators who are still at large.
And so something else, investigation have been opened into a fire incident in Kutaba that ravaged several houses as well as shops. Nora Kakebithos on the following report.
A fire incident occurred in Kutaba, Num Division in the West region of Cameroon yesterday, November 29, leaving some structures in complete ruins. Information gathered said the fire outbreak originated from fuel owned by a local trader. A passerby struck a match beside the container of fuel, which unfortunately caught fire. Several shops in the market in Kutaba were completely razed by the fire. The local population tried all they could to put the fire under control, while hoping that the firefighting unit would answer present to help out. Sadly, the absence of the firefighting team to prevent the fire from spreading led to an increased damage as several houses and other structures got consumed. The firefighting team had to leave from Bafoussam, but due to the poor state of road, they were not able to arrive at the scene on time. They only got there at night when the fire had already caused enormous damage. No human casualties were recorded. However, huge material damages were
Our inhabitants of Jinde neighborhood in Douala 2 subdivision have decried land expropriation. They say security officials stationed there to prevent them from having access to their lands. Get full details in the following report. This is Jinde in neighborhood in Bois-de-Senj, Douala 2 subdivision, Lithoua region of Cameroon. Jinde is a swampy area with most houses constructed with plank and suspended in a bid to prevent water from penetrating. Inhabitants of this neighborhood, faced with several challenges, say they are receiving threats from some security officials stationed there to prevent them from accessing their land.
Of today, to still feel people, poor people who have come for all the 3 corners of Cameroon. They don't have any choice. How can people be with guns in the town, filling land? If it is legal, they are legal. Why can they not take legal position? The state council is not aware. Whether the governor is aware, we don't know.
They are equally accusing local authorities of being corrupt and working in collaboration with some administrative officials.
People who are kept to protect the common man, to protect the layman, are those who are selling us at no mercy. The DOs, the so-called notabs, who are supposed to protect state property.
Due to the swampy nature of land in Jinde, the quality of drinking water, which is a major determinant of health, is a problem coupled with bad roads. With the numerous challenges they face, they are calling on officials to come to their aid while hoping things will get better. Over in the southwest region, the delegation sent by Prime Minister Chief Dr. Joseph Dionguthi to Government Bilingual High School Ekondo TT in the southwest region has shed tears after visiting the school, which as at now is yet to resume classes. It should be recalled that 3 students and a teacher died after an attack on Government Bilingual High School Ekondo TT on November 24, 2021. Moki Regan reports from Ekondo TT.
This is what is left of Form 1 in Government Bilingual High School, Ekondo TT, where 3 students and a teacher were shot dead during a French class on the 24th of November 2021 with books stained with blood and abandoned.
Boys entered, she ran, thinking that she can have access to the window, through the window. When she realized that she is blocked, she sat here. And the guys came and shot her.
Jesus Christ. Representing the Prime Minister and Head of Government, Chief Dr. Dionguthi, is Chief Gerard Fix Nasako, who walked around the campus with the principal of the school to see the reality on the ground so as to give feedback to the Cameroon Prime Minister.
Here to present the heartfelt sympathy of the Prime Minister, Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph Dionguthi, entire government of Cameroon, for following the death imposed on these 4 children and 1 teacher. In fact, as we have seen, it's a very hideous, heinous, horrendous crime committed, by these individuals who instill terror in the population.
In the school campus, uniform could be spotted on the ground thrown by students who do not want it to be identified by the attackers as they all ran out of school for their safety.
In fact, I have a bleeding heart, and this is the moment they must stop. The moment they must stop. What crime did these children commit to deserve this kind of a thing? Look at how children were removing their school uniforms, throwing them. They will not be identified as students. This is madness. And I just want to tell them this. And I think they should know one thing. The cry and the blood of these children has touched heaven.
Meanwhile, sources say 4 other students were seriously wounded and they are responding positively to treatment at the Limbe Regional Hospital. In one voice, the elite of Jan Division in general and Ekondo TT in particular call on parents to continue send their children to school for an educative and a better Cameroon.
Over in the northwest region, the Bamenda 3 Festival of Heritage, Arts and Culture rounded off over the weekend at Nkwen's Fon's Palace. Bamenda 3 Mayor Fongo Cletus at the closing ceremony announced the council will recruit teachers to teach the Nkwen and Za languages in primary schools in Bamenda 3 municipality. Charles Kebwa reports from Bamenda.
Inhabitants of the Bamenda 3 municipality in the Bamenda 3 subdivision of the Northwest have concluded over the weekend a 2-day event known as the Festival of Heritage, Arts and Culture, first of its kind connecting to our roots, reviving cultural values, organized by the Bamenda 3 Council that kick-started with a carnival walk led by His Majesty Fon III, Fon of Nkwen, and the Bamenda 3 Council Mayor Fongu Cletus. Nkwen village, with a population of over 180,000 inhabitants with 6 sub-chiefs. It is the first time since the reign of His Majesty Fon III the people have rallied to showcase their cultural value and heritage. Pregnant with diverse presentations from different arts, cultural, music, etc., people were able to enjoy cultural jamboree after 5 years of zero cultural come together because of the Anglophone crisis or conflict.
This festival talks about reconnecting to our roots. And nothing reconnect to your roots if you don't know the roots. Which way I present today that the woman of the old, when I'm a woman, when you work with them, I will take care of the children, take care of the home.
Today be the day where Nkwen be alive as far as culture be concerned. so that the glad plenty for this day as planned by the Bamenda Trade Council, when the mayor a program and then the fund embrace them and then make them be a success.
In line, reviving their cultural values, Bamenda Trade Council Mayor Fon Quinter announced the Bamenda Trade Council will recruit teachers to teach the Nkwen language in primary schools in the municipality.
I am pleased to announce that the Bamenda Trade Council will be recruiting some teachers to teach the Nkwen language in all public school and mission school in our municipality come the next financial year, fiscal year.
Over 35 cultural dances, 100 and more arts and craft exhibited different traditional meals characterized by cultural upliftment of the Nkwen village to His Majesty Fon Azefo III, Fon of Nkwen. It is the birth of a future.
I implore you not to relent in your effort to embrace change, learning, new trade and skills that will help you to secure or create employment in your community. Relying most especially on hard work and earning an honest living while shunning laziness, scam artists, and most especially the dreaded practice of selling land and other property to finance expensive lifestyle.
Fehaku, organized by the Bamenda Trade Council, aims as objective as a means of transforming cultural values to the young of the Bamenda Trade municipality. A jamboree, first of its kind, many say, should come again, as it's now an affair assured next year then.
Charles Kewa reporting from Bamenda. Onto something else, the defense of budgetary allocation gains steam at the National Assembly as members of the Committee on Finance and Budget alongside cabinet ministers defended why they deserve their respective packages to run projects. Nolinga completes the story.
The budgetary defense season at the National Assembly as cabinet ministers are taking turns at the Committee on Finance and the Budget, explaining to the lawmakers how they intend to use their respective envelopes for the new financial year. Prior to the defense proper, Cameroon's Minister of Finance has explained to the lawmakers some of the major tenets for the 2022 state budget. Leopold Motaze went telling the committee that for the government to push through with its policy of import substitution successfully, emphasis would be laid on encouraging local manufacturing.
What we are doing, as far as the government is concerned, is either to give subsidies to some people, to encourage them to produce here in the country, or to see what we can do for them as far as the taxes are concerned.
Having a project is one thing, and on the other hand, financing the projects. But for entrepreneurs, the challenges they face from banks to giving out loans is a major setback. Meanwhile, the state, on the other hand, has decided to act as surety, setting aside 200 billion francs CFA in 2021 to meet with the challenge. Nonetheless, government support is based on the relevance of the business to grow.
And, I can take the example of somebody who would like to settle a factory in Kribi for the producing of tires, for instance. This is very important.
These initiatives, alongside others, aim at keeping economic and port activities growing, but not without the invitation for consumers to respond positively, given their role is a bigger one in the realization scheme.
Now, the people of Babungo have reaffirmed their commitment to foster local development within their community with several projects earmarked. This was disclosed during the 40th anniversary of Vemkuda that held in Boya, attended by the Fon of Babungo. His Majesty Ndofwa Zofwa III. Get full details in the following report done for us by Clarice Okowe.
People of Bamungo found in the crisis-affected northwest region of Cameroon have reaffirmed their commitment to foster local development within their community despite the ongoing security challenges. They made this pledge during the celebration of the 40th anniversary of Vengombinde Cultural and Development Association, also known by its acronym as Venkuda, that held in Boya on Saturday. Earmarked as project for this coming year, construction of farm-to-market roads, the extension of electricity to some quarters, among others, as the national president exposes.
Things are not ready moving. So we thought it wise to make some progress so that we can help our brothers and sisters back home in the village by helping them subsidize their school fees, helping the younger ones, helping those that are sick in the hospitals, extension of electricity in others' quarters, construction of local bridges that can help our mothers.
Present during this ceremony was His Majesty the Fon of Bamungo, Ndofo Nzofo III, who reiterated the importance of peace for meaningful development to take place.
We did not only come here to contribute money, but they come here to meet each other. They contribute for the well-being of those, especially back home, especially at this period of upheavals and crisis.
In a bid to showcase their rich culture, these Venkuda members drawn from the 10 regions of Cameroon graced the occasion while being dressed in their unique traditional regalias, which preceded a cultural jamboree.
Our main purpose of coming here is to valorize and showcase the rich culture, and that we have been doing through cultural dances and sports competition.
The well-being of the persons who are invited here was already guaranteed. So as the president, to see that we fasten up some loopholes as far as security is concerned. As you can see around, we have security up to the tip.
It is expected that the projected 46 million francs CFA that will be raised by these elites will be used to foster development within the Bamungo community.
Still ahead, some 400 students from the Higher Institution of Business Management and Technology, HIMAT Boya, have been matriculated with a call for them to identify and use their skills positively. The matriculation ceremony that took place over the weekend was attended by representatives from the two mentor universities of HIMAT. Clarissa Kowe once more.
Through this oath-taking, these fresh students from the Higher Institution of Business Management and Technology, HIMAT Boya, have pledged their commitment to abide to the rules and regulations of the Higher Institution of Learning. This was during the 11th matriculation ceremony that held at the amphitheater of HIMAT Boya Campus B. Addressing the students, the rector of HIMAT, Professor Ibrahim Tala Kashim, reminded the fresh students on the importance of the matriculation ritual and the need for them to be ambassadors of the institution.
It's an engagement, a solemn engagement that the student would abide by the rules and regulations of the institution, and that the student should work hard and be of good moral behavior.
Among those matriculating this Saturday, November 27, are HND Fresh students, the 8th batch of Tech students, and the 1st batch of BSc students, mentored by the universities of Boya and Bamenda.
I'm equally pleased to say that we have representatives of the two mentor universities, that is the University of Bamenda and the University of Boya. The University of Bamenda mentors us for the P-Tech program under 4 different schools: School of Business Management Sciences, School of Engineering and Technology.
We recently signed a cooperation agreement to mentor for the programs. This is a university institute of difference. This emphasis on professionalization and skills acquisition.
In his academic discourse caption, addressing the challenge of unemployment through professionalism and skills development, the guest speaker, Achaleke Christian Leke, encouraged these fresh students to believe in their innate skills to positively influence their future.
Skills can transform your life. He did that to me. But at the same time, skills cannot just transform your life if you do not work on your moral and ethical values.
The matriculation ceremony was equally attended by the representative from the Mentor University of Bamenda, Professor Julius Victor Cho, who joined his voice to that of the previous speakers to call on the fresh students to be disciplined, assiduous, and creative.
Now 16 days of activism campaign against gender-based violence is ongoing in Badun village, Nguti subdivision. The campaign was launched last Friday, November 26, 2021. Tamfu Sidwan reports from Badun.
The 16 days activism was launched in Badun village, Nguti subdivision, situated about 1.5 kilometers from Kokoboma in Konye subdivision. Sponsored by the United Nations Women in Action Against Gender-Based Violence, the United Nations Emergency Response Fund. The campaign is intended to stop gender-based violence in the communities as explained by Mr. Ekang Matthias, officer with Work International Boya.
Ending gender-based violence in the community, precisely the grassroots community and the hard-to-reach community. And most often, we mostly concentrate on those in town, but we neglect those in the villages, in the rural areas, precisely to work with. So precisely the UN women saw that this is very necessary to handle communities that are hard to reach in the interiors. So that's why we've been saying here to come and educate them on how to end this violence, such as beating their wives, raping their wives at home, forceful marriages, sending children to early marriages.
The communities also benefited from grinding meals, recreational items, and many others, which will go a long way to divert people's attention from any form of physical or psychological violence.
So to hand them some materials that we have been working with them, that they choose that we should hand it to them, so that it can help to strengthen the community and to build resilience in them, concerning the context of which we are and that we find ourselves into. They are grinding meals, protection material that will brought them to give them here, like material that can remove them from trauma, to build their psychology, to remove their brain from unnecessary and the things that can cause them to push them to go to committing acts to women that are violence to them.
Present during the launching, the chief of Badum village, Chief Ekwe Roger de Food, expressed happiness and prayed such gestures continue to prevail in the community.
Up to 2 years ago that my father died, I've never experienced this in our community, but we have struggled and made a lot of efforts. You see, we have common initiative group, licensed ones, cooperatives. But after the end of the day, we spent money, but at the end of the day, we received nothing. So I really appreciate this.
The population was also overwhelmed during the event. The 16 days activism bringing together 5 communities was launched under the theme Orange the World and End Violence Against Women Now.
And master's thesis on staff evaluation of CSR for Sonora has revealed the dire need for an improvement in the internal communication policy of the National Oil Refinery. The finding was presented during an academic exercise chaired by Professor Victor Nguchu, Associate Professor in Communication from the University of Bamenda. Clarice Ekowe more.
Is used to pause longer.
Under stiff academic conditions, this is Blesius Gome, a master's student in corporate communication from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, University of Boya, defending his master's dissertation on the topic Staff Evaluation of Corporate Social Responsibility of the National Oil Refinery, Sonora.
He, coming from Sonora, was able to use his over 30 years of experience in the refining company to have staff evaluate their own corporate social responsibility. We were able to scientifically acknowledge that biases or idiosyncrasies, if any, did not affect the piece of work which we have seen today.
According to the candidates, the findings from the research work unveils the need for Sonora to improve on its communication strategy for better output.
If what we have discovered, the findings are properly used, this can change the face of Sonora and help to improve its image, its reputation, value creation, and even what we call employee retention and employee turnover. These are
chairing this defense panel was Professor Julius Victor Cho, Associate Professor in Communication from the University of Bamenda, who appreciated the findings of the research work after cross-evaluating through questions and answers session with the candidates, and that ended him an A grade.
A well-researched and well-written dissertation. The methodology is apt and the findings very relevant. You made a grade of excellence with the score of 84 on 100. Congratulations.
Meanwhile, companies, researchers, and the general public have been encouraged to use the rare opportunity to exploit the findings of the research work that will be deposited at the University of Buea Library after correction on comments made by the panelists are effected.
We've come to the end of today's edition of Prime News on My Media Prime Television. Coming up next is Prime Hour with Kum Leonard and HT. My name is Fon Quinter. Good night.